Hello, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of Founder Stories. Today, our guest is Dan. Dan, please tell us about a bit about yourself and all the interesting things you're doing.
Let's see, I'm a two-time founder. I first created the RunP app, the app that tells you the best time to run and pee during a movie so that you don't miss the best scenes. And that was, I mean, it's astonishing, really. The mobile app launched in 2009, so it's about one of the oldest mobile apps out there. There's not many apps older than RunP that Google or Apple didn't make themselves.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm a recent new founder for a startup called MapT, MAPT.co. And we are working on helping students in America navigate the process of going from high school to college. Or at least that is the current focus right now is on that path and helping students, because I don't know what it's like in your countries, but it's very stressful for American students. There's a big divide with the resources that middle and higher income parents can afford for their kids versus low income parents for their kids. So it widens the education divide, and we're trying to kind of balance that out. And long term, our plan is to grow the app into something that is beneficial for all high school students to make the transition from high school to whatever they might be doing, whether it's college or trade schools or the workforce, to make the best decisions they can, uh, to launch into kind of their adult life.
Okay. So, how does it map? Does it? I mean, what process does a user go through that map then suggests some colleges based on wherever whatever subjects are a kid or an adult want to pursue.
Right. So the original founder of the app, our CEO, Henry Woodbridge, he was a college admissions advisor. So he worked at a company that, well-off parents would pay them to help their kids, you know, go through this process of, essay writing and when you need to take tests and finding schools. Like, finding the right school is a huge challenge. Um, there's a lot of schools, a lot of kids don't get exposed to the right school or the right fit for them. So maybe they get into college, but maybe it was the wrong one for them and they don't succeed. Um, because, and I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head precisely, but um, students from middle class and upper class families, they graduate, I think, on roughly a 60% rate, those that go to college. And most of those kids do go to college, whereas lower income students, it's, I think it's around 30% go to college, and less than half get through college. And I just saw an amazing statistic today that regardless of class or income, 65% of college graduates regret going to college. And so, while that's our focus right now is to help students navigate into college, we also want to help them get to the right college that fits to optimize their chances of success, and also to point out the myriad opportunities that are out there that aren't college, that might be very rewarding for them.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
you told about having a person going into the right college and the right direction. Just a question in my mind. Like, if a person doesn't even go to a college or something, and where he's going to like learn the fundamentals and all that, yeah, then how the person is going to like cope up with the guy who is in the college, what kind of a mindset he like develop by self grooming or something like that. what kind of a direction do you suggest for a person who is not able to like go into like colleges right now in US? I think so the college fees is a bit of a problem there as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So there's kind of a this kind of goes back to around the 80s or so. Um, there was an initial push of even blue collar workers who made good money, were middle securely in the middle class, were encouraging their children, don't follow in my footsteps. Don't be a plumber. Don't be a construction worker. Go into college and be, something more professional.
Mhm.
Or yeah, I should put quotes around professional because it's not like being a plumber or something isn't a profession. But it was, by all classes, it was viewed as a status to get in and graduate college. And that's kind of held over, like you automatically, in America, there's a bit of a presumption of, I didn't go to college, I'm a failure. Like, it's subtle, but it's there. Um, but there's so many things, like, so we have a great community college program in America, which is pretty affordable. Like, I'm
Mhm.
not saying it's dirt cheap, but you can, almost anybody can like work and get through community college, and that's typically a 2-year program, and you finish with an associate's degree, an
Mhm.
AA. Whereas if you go to college, you finish with a BA, a Bachelor's of Arts or Science, BS.
Mhm.
So these degrees in college they're really beneficial because it's much cheaper, and you can get a lot of the core curriculum, because even if you do go to college,
Mhm.
a university, you are paying a premium to take English 101, to take arts and stuff. Like, you've got your core curriculum stuff that you're paying a premium, and you're not taking the good stuff yet. You don't really get to the good stuff until you're a junior and senior anyway. And so there is a lot of students that rightfully pick going to community college, do 2-ish years, or work, do 2 or 3, 4 years, uh, get a lot of the lower classes, the 100, 200 level classes, out of their way at a discount. And then they're older, they're more mature, they're ready to handle the workload of going to college, maybe as a junior and senior. Or there's so many apprenticeships. Like, you can go in, and this is different on state by state, where there's different regulations and stuff. But a really good example is to become an electrician. You can become an electrician, but basically anybody can do it. Like, you're not going to break the bank. There's going to be a lot of people that would sponsor you to do it. And so you can, in a short period of time, take the classes you need, go on a job, start making money as like a junior apprentice level electrician. But you're making money, and you're making pretty decent money. While your friend who went to college to study electrical engineering is spending a lot of money for, let's presume, 4 years. Like, they knock it out, they do it in 4 years. So for 4 years, they're spending money
Mhm.
to go through college, to get out and work to find a job. Meanwhile, you went this route. For 4 years, you've been making money. After 4 years, you've got money, and give or take, depending on how good you are and how fast you progress, at around 5 years, you can become a master electrician. And a
Mhm.
master electrician makes 6 figures. You
Mhm.
know, they make electrical engineering money, or close to it, and they don't have student debt. Um, and we need a lot of electricians. That's something a lot of young kids are very excited about, is going into green tech. And, you know, solar panels don't wire themselves. All of these things require a lot of hands-on, and then the odd thing is that AI is going to be doing a lot more of the engineering workload as time goes on, um, making making it so that we don't necessarily need as many electrical engineers. to be more productive, to handle that workload. But, we don't have robots yet
Yeah.
that can wire things up in a cow field and string cable and do all of these things. Like that's still a bit off, so that's just a good example of one path that students can take that's
Mhm.
different than college.
Mhm.
Yeah, neither do those robots come cheap. So yeah, not everybody could afford. So there's still be a lot of need
Yeah,
for the electricians.
yeah, exactly.
So, then I was like a little bit interested about the name you like decided about your companies, the RunP and the other one. So, as a founder, as a startup entrepreneur, how do you suggest young founders decide the name? And do you really think it matters or not? What's your opinion?
Um, I think it probably matters less than you might think. Um, so RunP was simple. I mean, this is an idea that I had in 2005. So I had the idea for the app after watching Peter Jackson's remake of King Kong. 3-hour movie, had to pee desperately by the end of the movie, and that was the inspiration. And um, I looked it up. I bought the domain runp.com
Mhm.
like within less than a month.
Mhm.
So I remember having the idea, kind of kicking it around with some friends, and bought the domain. And it basically came down to something short. So 6 letters, like even in 2005, or basically 2006, finding any random 6-letter domain
Mhm.
was going to be a hard sell, especially a .com.
Yes.
Like,
Oh my God. Yeah.
exactly. So, I found runp.com. It's like you run and pee, you know. And so it's funny, a lot of people thought that this was an app about if you are a jogger and you need to pee and like,
Mhm.
okay, Um, so I could get that confusion. So that was the inspiration behind that one. Like I didn't put a marketing team behind it. It was just me. Like there was that, and the other one was okay to go,
Mhm.
um, from the movie Contact. Okay to go, and so Run Peep Run Out. And then for Mapped, it was originally called Undecided,
Yeah. I
and
read your article. Yeah, something
yeah,
was undecided name. Yeah, mentioned.
and we kind of decided that it was a slightly negative connotation, undecided, and because we want to help you to decide, and so we
Mhm.
kind of kicked it around, and I think it was probably about 6 8 months ago. We had a bunch of ideas that as a team we just kind of floated around, and then Henry, the CEO, picked Mapped, um, because of the idea of we're helping students navigate the future. So map worked well with kind of the what we're trying to project in the name. And
Mhm.
I'm not crazy about .co because people could have just typed .com and we're not there.
Mhm.
But how often do you type a URL? You get a
Yeah.
link, you click it, you're done. So
Okay. Okay. So, coming to the, I would say, interesting one is like you are like running two startups. Is it correct right
yeah,
now? So,
pretty much, yeah.
is it okay to start multiple startups together, or should a young guy focus on one particular product or something? Yeah. What's your opinion about it? Because you're the one who is like running the show for the like two startups right now. Yeah.
Yeah, so Run P is just me basically, and
Mhm.
my family and a few friends, we call us the peeps. Um, we go out and watch the movies, so that we actually have to go personally watch every movie on opening night and do the P time. So that's not a huge time suck. Um, I mean, the app has been around for 15 years, so I think calling Run P a startup, I think we're a little bit past that stage. Like it's pretty self-contained. I do all the customer support myself. Um, And so there's less than probably 10 to 15 hours a week that I have to put in to maintain RunP. Um, and that's why I took the opportunity to. I met Henry at a co-working space. You know, he's developing a mobile app. That's my expertise. I really liked him. He liked me. I liked his cause. I wanted to work on something that was meaningful beyond, you know, just trying to make some money. I wanted to try to help move the needle on some societal issues. Um, and so, you know, we collaborated for about a year and a half. And then my wife came on board um, about full time about a year or so ago. And we've got two other part time employees, a designer and kind of a jack of all trades that help with things. So, you know, I'm not running two startups. You know, one is coasting and the other, I play a role in it, you know, but it's not on me. And so that is a really good question though about how much workload do you take? Like if you've got an idea that you think is the bomb, like you're really sold, like you basically have a problem and you've come up with a solution for it and you know you're in love with that, you know, focus your time on it and see if you can get it where it needs to go. Um, you know, because depending on if it's a bootstrap, like RunP was bootstrap, I did it all by myself. I've never had investment money. And the app has made money because users pay for it. And now it's completely donation supported.
Mhm.
Um, so, you know, yeah, you've got to decide what you can focus on. If you've got like three or four ideas and you don't really know which one, sure, maybe kind of kick all of them around until one of them, you know, basically I would treat it as one of the problems is going to grab you, like, don't let go of me. Like, you know, it will tell you we're we've got some work here to do.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, you've got to balance that, and I think you also have to factor in the question of when do you give up? You know, most startups don't make it, and at what point do you say like, okay, this is just not going to work either? The technology's not there. I don't have the resources. Whatever. Like that's a nobody talks about that enough to say how do you decide when to give up on a project and move on to something else?
Mhm.
Um, I don't have an answer for that, but it's an important thing to think about, and maybe even think about going in and saying like, okay, you know, I'm going to devote this much time, this much resource into a project, and this is the metric, like this much revenue or this many users. Because you know, maybe you don't want to focus on revenue. You want to just, if I could get 10,000 users by in 6 months, I'll figure out a way to make money. You
Mhm.
know, but set something out there and say like, this is my goal, and if I don't get there, you know, I'll either quit or at least, you know, say like, if I don't get to this, I need to really seriously reevaluate the, you know, the process that I'm going through and should I keep going?
Okay. So you mentioned about not taking any fundings and all. So what do you suggest for the guys who are like driving their products? When is the time to like go to the investors, and should they really, or should they more focus towards like getting the sales? Right now there is like a competition, a lot of competition. So do you think it's right choice to go to the investors upfront, like in the start, or in the later stage? Yeah.
So RunP has not taken any. With MapT, we are actively seeking investors, and we're
Mhm.
kind of we do have an MVP. It's in the market. Students are using it. We do have a little bit of revenue, and we're slowly growing, but we're not what any of us would really consider feature complete. Like there's still work to be done, we feel, before we're really ready to grab the world, or at least to grab the U.S. market.
Mhm.
Um, so we have been seeking investors. I would say wait as long as possible because the better your story, the better your analytics. If you have some revenue, if you have some proof of your model, then you can get better terms.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to an angel investor with an idea, they're not going to invest in the idea, they're going to invest in you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, basically it's like going to a bank to get a loan. You might get it, but you're going to get a crap insurance rate,
Mm-hmm.
interest rate. I'm sorry, interest rate. The farther along you are in the process, the more that you've kind of proven your model to users and stuff, you could kind of start bringing that down, and you're going to give up less to get more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's really like, I would say take as little as you can,
Okay.
but go for as much as you need.
Okay. I saw your profile. So it says you were working as a lead Flutter something, yeah, in
Yeah.
your team. And so there's a question. So this technology, I have like worked with a lot myself as well in the early times when it was like beta or something.
hmm
Yeah. But how do you find the framework really, and what challenges people face deciding a tech stack and technology building a software product? Yeah.
Uh, Man, choosing a framework. So the first thing is find a framework. Like unless I it's a hard sell to think of any app that needs to be native. And if you
Mhm.
build native, you're building two separate code bases, and that is just a time suck that honestly a startup just does not have. You don't have the resources or the time to spend on trying to build two separate apps. So
Mhm.
pick a framework. Um, the so I chose my wife actually discovered Flutter and pitched it to me because RunP had originally been built using Adobe Air, and that
Mhm.
was one of the first cross-platform frameworks for iOS and Android, and it had kind of run its course, and it was time um, to basically rebuild the app using
Mhm.
some other framework. And personally, as a developer, it was not going to be based on JavaScript. I'm sorry, not going to happen. TypeScript is okay, but I like strongly typed languages. And even though I grew up in the 90s writing JavaScript, um, yeah, I wasn't going to do that. And Dart is a it's a pretty good language, and it's actually improved a tremendous amount. Probably like if you were playing with it in beta, there's probably like 2018, 19 frame.
Yeah.
Dart has really grown a lot in 4 or 5 years. Um, so it has null safety is built in,
Yep.
and let me tell you, that was I don't regret rebuilding the RunP app in Flutter using Dart as a program language. Flutter is a framework, but we did it before null safety, and the transition to null safety was arduous.
Mhm.
Um, but now we're past that. So if you're out there right now, um, do your homework. I would recommend that you look at something that's future proof first. So if it's like React, I think that's got enough momentum behind it. You want to be able to say like 5, 10 years in the future, it's going to be deployable. Like I'm not going to have any issues. Flutter is open source. It is Google Flutter, but it's an open source project. So if Google were to just walk away from it, there's a community behind it that can keep it
Mhm.
going indefinitely.
Mhm.
Um, and so those are like the two biggest ones.
Yep.
And then do you enjoy the development environment? Um, you could use VS Code
Mhm.
for this. I use Android Studio. It's great using a fantastic IDE that's free. And let's face it, in how much longer are we going to care what our developers even going to care what the language is? Because AI is writing a lot of my code these days. I write a lot of comments
Mhm.
and like function dot enter. Bam.
Mhm.
That looks about right. Yeah, that's about what I needed to do. Oh, wait a second. You missed this. Okay, good. And next. So, yeah.
So it's like I think you definitely have done a lot of coding yourself as well, seeing your profile and all. So right now, as AI is progressing, the work for like five people is like being replaced, I would say, by one or two. uh, if you just look into having things develop, they are like 10 times faster right now. Yeah. What your suggestion for that? Are the people going to lose their jobs, or uh, there is some kind of a replacement, or what do you suggest for the young guys, young software engineers? Yeah.
Man, that is a great question. I think about that a lot, especially being in a like working on an app that like we have interns that are working with us, and almost all of them want to go into computer science. And I'm like, man, I don't even know. Like, we're talking, they won't be out of college for at least 6 years. Like, they're in high school right now, they're juniors, so it's going to be like 5, 6 years minimum before they're out of college.
Mhm.
What on earth is the development experience going to be like in 5 or 6 years? Um, Sitting down and writing code, I think will be like me trying to imagine writing assembly right now. It's like, it's like, assembly? Who writes assembly code anymore? You know, um, I think that if you are passionate about coding, uh, and you especially want to push the edge and maybe go into research on coding, then that's definitely an you're going through an academic path now, and you either want to get a job or go into like becoming a professor of computer science
Mhm.
or computer engineering, or you want to go to work at a Google or OpenAI that's building the software that writes the software.
Mhm.
If that's the path that you want to take, sure. I,
Mhm.
I I think that's there. If you want, and let's face it, the vast majority of computer science majors just end up writing code for apps, like the whole shebang. Like there's there's so much code out there that needs to be written, but that level, I think you hit the nail on the head that individual developers are seeing productivity boosts go through the roof. Like I can write code in languages I don't even know.
Yep.
Like I'm perfectly happy. Like uh, again, like once you've learned a handful of languages, they're all basically the same. It's like type variable, variable type, whatever. Um, but like I was doing some stuff on the blog that involved some pretty heavy JavaScript graphing and things like that. And I'm like, I am not going to sit here and write an application that graphs like a chart. And I just go to Anthropic or ChatGPT and type in what I want for my blog, and it's like literally copy paste, put this in there, and it worked.
Mhm.
And like I understand the code, I could read it, but I could not have written it. I would have had to have studied which charting thing to use and charting package and blah blah blah. Yeah, this I did in less than an hour, something that could have easily taken all weekend if I'd just been like reading tutorials and going through it like the old way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have been I also have been like coding for like many years, I would say. Uh, Working before like these AI tools, and or before these things, was like having to work on a single feature for like days,
Yeah.
and now the work has like reduced drastically, yeah,
Hmm.
to like hours or something. Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is like great, as well as, yeah, I would say, people are losing core fundamentals. What your suggestion on that?
Uh, yeah, another really good point. And I think it reminds me of the argument back when I was a kid
Yep.
of, oh, kids are aren't gonna know how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide if they've got a calculator. And what it
Yes.
freed us up to do is learn, you know, complex analysis
Hmm.
and stuff. So it's like, okay, look, coding, um, the high. So I want to make sure that I don't know which term to use. High level, to me, low level coding is like assembly. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah. I would
coding,
say it's assembly, and like if you go more low level, it's like binary. Yeah.
yeah, binary. So when I say like doing like what we what probably you and I would probably consider low level of like I'm writing the functions for this button handler, event handlers, or I'm connecting to databases and stuff. That kind of stuff is like why are we bothering with that? I need to understand how that works and what's happening through the chain. But like right now I'm working on a feature for the app and I'm sitting back and I'm thinking of data structures. Like, okay, if I do it this way, oh yeah, that won't work, And so I'm thinking really, really high level, the 50,000 foot, like I need to get this data structure right to handle what I'm trying to solve right now and the next two features that get piled on top of this. Like, what am I missing here? Because refactoring a database is like, man, just kill me now. Um, Not something you ever want to have to bother doing. So,
Hmm.
so I
Okay.
to answer your question, I think that I would hope that if you're a coder, you still learn enough of the fundamentals to be able to ask first. You have to know how to frame the prompt to get the code that you need. So you kind of have to understand enough to do the low level, prompting there. And then to just be able to read through the flow and see if this is right and this is right and this is right. Um, and then free yourself up to really focus on the big picture of how things are going to integrate, data structures, scaling, so on and so forth.
Okay. Yeah. Ramil, do you have something? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Your voice got lost a bit there. Yeah, Dan, I'm very interested in talking with you about RunP because I
Okay.
think it's such a interesting and cool thing to exist and to even think about it. You thought of it, 10, 15 years ago. So my question is like, has watching the movies, like as you write on your website, you're doing about 160 a year. Has it ever become a burden? I mean, sure, when it's fun, but come on, like I'm really gonna sit 3 hours here and write timestamps, like when it's the time to pee.
Yeah. So is it a burden to watch the movies or a burden to do the P times?
Both, I guess.
Both.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, that's a good question. It's kind of a double-edged sword. So, I've watched roughly about one movie a week. My sister watches one. We've got a few other people that watch some here and there. So we're adding two, three, sometimes four movies each week. Um, I have to see a lot of movies that I don't want to see. And I'm not gonna lie, the majority of them suck. And, you're kind of left like, who read this script and thought this was going to be a good movie? Like where did they go wrong? And as a creator myself, I feel bad because I know that people put blood, sweat, and tears behind crap. And, they didn't think they were going to make crap, but it just turned out that way. And everybody kind of knows it when you see it. But on the other side, I go see a lot of movies that I don't want to, and I'm like, holy crap, I never would have gone to see this movie, but this was good stuff. And so now sometimes, people will ask you, like, what's your favorite genre? What kind of movie do you like? And my answer used to be like science fiction, action, Marvel type stuff. And now it's just like, I like good movies. Like, let's just cut to the chase. Like, if it's a good movie, but it's a rom-com, I'm happy. Like, there's good stories to be told there if done properly. Um, But you can take an action movie and you've got horrible character development, and so I'm just like, God, this is just a chore. And I think something that's interesting that comes up a lot, people assume that bad movies are easy to do P times for because, like, the movie sucks. So it should be easy to find, the 3 to 5 minute P times in here. And it's almost always the opposite. Bad movies have bad pacing, they cut back and forth between things, they're disjointed. Good movies have a rhythm to them, and they flow and they give you time between scenes, and they just work. So a good example, just this last week, I saw the movie Civil War that came out here in America, and it is hands down one of the best scripts ever.
Mm-hmm.
It is a work of genius, in my opinion. And it was so easy finding good P times. Like, this is the kind of movie that movie students should watch and see how a master does it. And Alex Garland he is brilliant. He's done some great stuff. Ex Machina, for instance, and a bunch of others that I'm forgetting. So yeah, kind of both sides. It's a drudgery. I have to watch a bunch of movies I don't like.
Yeah.
It's a thrill because I'm exposed to movies I never would have seen that I love, and I get to appreciate storytelling better.
Yeah, there's good and there's bad. Yeah,
Yeah,
I understand.
yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to ask what was the last movie that you weren't expecting, to be good and turned out to be great, and you just mentioned Civil War. I actually did saw. I mean, I guess I may have seen a trailer or something on YouTube. Just came across. It stars Kristen Dunst, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
heroine,
yeah.
Spider-Man. Yeah, yeah, right.
Hmm.
Uh, the last movie I wasn't expecting to be that good. My brother took me. It was Dune 2. I hadn't watched the part one.
Hmm.
um, I literally watched it the night before and went to see the part two. And man, did I love that movie. I kind of regret now. I should have read the books because I like reading science fiction books. Uh, yeah.
Okay, so I've
So,
got some good news for you.
wow.
The movie is maybe a third of the book.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
mean, the book. So this is my favorite book. My favorite series and my favorite individual book of science fiction is Dune. I've read it a dozen times at least. I've read the whole trilogy. Well, all
It's
there's a bunch
yeah.
of books, so I've read them
Fine.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and so I can say as a Uber fan that there's a lot in the books that goes into so much more depth. There's entire storylines that are kind of just completely cut out, characters that are missing completely. So if you, yeah, I think it's beneficial because it is so hard to envision a lot in the book, and having seen the movie, and so like seeing what the worms look like, seeing what these different characters look like will make it easier to follow the intricacies of Dune. And by the way, Dune is not science fiction. It is political,
Yeah.
spiritual fiction.
Yeah. A
Yeah,
kind of mythical and it
yeah,
mixes things a little bit. Yeah. Do you
yeah.
think it messes up if you watch a movie first and then go after read a book? I think it would, ruin the fun a bit for those who like
Um,
to.
I think with Dune, I would say that to get Dune, you would have to read the
Mm-hmm.
book at least 3 times.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and so like I really think that having watched the movie isn't going to decrease. I think it will. I think you will enjoy reading Dune for the first time more after having seen the movie versus just reading the book out of first and then watching the movie. You know, so yeah, I think that this is a case, and I wouldn't say that's always the case. Some stories lend themselves to being put into a movie, and it's like, well, okay, the movie is the book. It follows and everything. Um, I don't think anybody would say that watching Lord of the Rings would detract from reading Lord of the Rings because there is so much to visualize in those books that you're reading. It's like, wait, who, what, who is this person? I forgot. Like, and if you've seen the movies and you know the characters, then you're there in the story, I think, a little bit better. So that's my personal opinion, but it would definitely be highly recommended reading the books.
Yeah, I was browsing today to wanted to buy some science fiction books. Dune came up. I was like, man, I had watched the movie.
Yeah.
What if I regret buying those books? So I went with Atlas Shrugged. And do you read? I mean, you watch movies. Do you read?
You're too old for that, man. I'm sorry. That ship has sailed.
No, I'm just trying
Um,
to.
so Atlas Shrugged. This will be interesting. Some readers are gonna, or some of the podcast listeners are gonna be like, "Oh yes, you've got to read that." And a lot of other people are like, "Yeah, when you were 16, you could
Really?
read it." Yeah. Like I read Atlas Shrugged when I was young, in my teens or 20s, early 20s, and it's like, "Oh yes, I totally get this and understand it and everything." And now I'm older, and I'm like, "What a bunch of crap!" Like, you know, completely missing the point. To the point that, do you know who John Oliver is? He does. He's on the comedy. He used to be on Comedy Central.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so I can recall something. Yeah.
Okay, so you can watch. He did. There used to be this on Last Week Tonight. They do this spot of, how is this still a thing?
Okay.
Like, why does it still exist? And it was specifically Atlas Shrugged.
Mhm.
Why do people still quote Atlas Shrugged? And to give you some context, and I don't know anybody's political ideology here, but everybody who was talking about Atlas Shrugged as being a paragon of moral philosophy and ethics and stuff were all Republicans. Every single one of them were touting Atlas Shrugged and its message, and it is a straw what do you a straw man argument that she pitches. Like, yeah. So I
I think it's written by a Russian author, right? Atlas Shrugged is written by a Russian author.
it's written by Ayn Rand.
And
Ayn
Rand. Yeah.
Rand. Yeah,
I've heard.
everybody says her name with it. Ayn Rand, something like that.
I
Yeah.
think she's Russian. Okay, so one book I'm reading, and please do not talk bad about it.
Well,
I'm loving it right now. It's
well,
The Foundation by
oh
Isaac
yeah,
Asimov. Yeah.
that is some classic hardcore science fiction. Yeah, Harry Sheldon. What
Yeah.
is that? Psychomath? Is that
Yeah. Psychohistory. Psychohistory.
psychohistory? Psychohistory. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now it's been ages. So I grew up a huge Arthur C. Clarke fan, and but Clarke wrote mostly fiction, whereas
Yeah.
Asimov wrote mostly science. Like he wrote a book on brain anatomy that was taught in colleges for like decades and decades and decades. I mean, Asimov was a polymath,
Yeah.
for sure. So I have to throw this out there. There's a book that Clarke wrote. It's something about the future. I can't remember the title of it, but the the dedication, it said, in accordance, and Clarke and Asimov were friends. So, in accordance to the Clarke-Asimov Treaty, the second best science writer dedicates this book to the second best science fiction writer.
I remember it now. I remember it now. I remember it now. It
Yeah,
was.
isn't
Yeah. It
yeah,
was. I think three authors who did this. It was Robert Heinlein, the guy who wrote "The Moon is a Harsh Mistress,"
yep,
and I think.
yeah, Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
but see what? So he was saying that they had agreed that Clarke, who also wrote a lot of science books about physics and so on and so forth, and interestingly, Clarke worked on the project during World War II that helped develop radar for Britain that defended them against the Luftwaffe bombings. So Clark was an engineer, and you know, he wrote a lot of science-based books, not fiction stories at all, just science-based books about stuff, and obviously a ton of science fiction. And Asimov was the same, except he wrote more science than he wrote fiction. And so they decided that Clark is the best science fiction writer and the second best science writer. And Asimov was his opposite there. He was the second best science fiction writer. Heinlein definitely deserves some credit in
Yeah.
in being in there, but yeah.
Well, you have messed up my buying list because you just said Atlas Shrugged. Atlas Shrugged is not to be bought. So maybe I'll just, run some of my to be bought books to be bought list from you.
Oh,
I was
don't depend on me.
well. You just said do not read it's a crap Atlas Shrugged, and I was very keen on buying it.
Yeah, like I said, I think that, and I don't want to be insulting to anybody out there, but I think that you're probably a little too mature to fall for the argument, because the argument that she pitches is very compelling about the ownership of ideas and stuff, and it sounds compelling to somebody who's young. But then when you go up and you're like, well, this, for instance, the argument that I've had with a lot of friends about training on AI, and that AI was trained on a lot of things that are copyrighted. And I disagree with the hard line that they take that there shouldn't be any copyrighted material in there. Um, I don't disagree completely, but I think that if an AI, so my argument was this: if you use AI and you say write a function that does this in this manner, and it does that, and it's using something code from a copyrighted um, project, it's up to you, the developer, to vet, like, is this okay to go with, right? As opposed to, like, because you could ask a junior developer the same thing. I'm not going to bother writing this low level crap. Go write this function that does this sorting algorithm or from something, and give it back to me. And you're responsible for, the validity. Do they violate any copyright laws? So I don't think that training an AI on things that are copyrighted isn't necessarily a bad thing. And I also think the argument that we stand on the shoulder of giants. So nobody alive today has accomplished anything that they could have done without, Newton and calculus and physics and so on and so forth. So we owe it to the previous generations for what they've given us, and where AI is helping project us and propel us faster into the future, hopefully a more equitable future. That's what we all hope, but who knows? But I think that argument is kind of brought up in Atlas Shrugged as, if you have an idea, you own all of it. And it's like, yeah, okay. So did you invent mining? You know, do you know how to go get the stuff out of the ground? Do you know how to do this? Do you know how to do that? Like, you are benefiting the labor of other people whose work was done hundreds of years ago, but you couldn't do your work today without their effort, and you're not paying them anything. So, I think it's a nuanced argument, and Atlas Shrugged is not nuanced. It is hitting the hammer on the wall. It's her message, and yeah, she grew up in communist Russia and had a beef, so to speak. So
Oh yeah, now I understand.
yeah, I hope that kind of gets the point across. But, and so in that light, if you take it as, you know, arguing with her and reading it, then maybe it is valuable to see, like, yeah, but, you know, because as a young kid, I didn't do any of the, well, but, I was like, oh yeah, 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 you're right, you're right, you're right, right. And it wasn't until I was older, it's like, God, what a fool I was, you know.
Well, there goes that book.
There goes that book.
Yeah, I was thinking about maybe reading Three Body Problem. Netflix producer, and it's got a pretty big hype around it. But
Yeah.
then again, there's a series for it, and should I read the book? There's always
Well,
this dilemma.
I'm going to say you can't read the book because it's in Chinese, and the translation into English
Yeah,
is
of course. Yeah, then it
problematic.
would
Yeah.
mess it up. Yeah, a lot would be
Um,
lost in
it's
translation.
it's my wife's favorite book. She's read that over and over and over again and absolutely loves it. Um, but yeah, that is another, one of the current classics for sure. So I have a question for you. Would you rather, for both of you, would you rather go see a movie that you don't expect it to be very good, but it turns out to be like, let's say going in, your expectation is like a 7 out of 10. Your expectation is a 7 out of 10. And you go watch the movie and it's like an 8.5. Okay.
Okay.
Or would you rather go see, so you've jumped up like 1.5 points, or would you rather go see a movie that you think is going to be pretty good? Like going in, you're thinking like, this is going to be a B, this is going to be an 80, or I'm sorry, an 8. And you watch it and it's like, it's pretty good. I mean, I might give that like a B plus, like a 8.8, right? Which movie would you rather see? The one that was way better than expectation, but not as good as the one that's expectation was higher.
For me, I never go see a movie that I think would not be good. Actually, to be really honest, yeah.
Yeah.
The last three movies I went to watch, it was MI7 from Tom Cruise. I really love Mission Impossible series.
Hmm.
I watched all of them with my father. My father loves action movies, so
Yeah.
you know, it's every time a Tom Cruise movie comes out, we watch it together. And we loved Maverick, the last Maverick that came out. Man, was it a good movie, now?
Yeah.
And so MI7 it was kind of a family thing, so, and I
Hmm.
expected to be good, and it was good. I mean, of course there was Elsa dies, and then the new role the Grace is playing. It was a really good movie, and Dune. I did expect it to be good, to be honest, because of the director Dennis.
Yeah.
Uh, I
Yeah.
had I had watched Blade Runner, and I loved
Yeah.
Blade Runner. I loved Ryan Gosling in it. So I same. Anytime go to theater, I only go to watch great movies. I never go to watch a movie that I think would be mid, or any of my any of the friends tell me to go watch a movie. I say no, man, I'm not gonna waste my money and especially 3 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I would say a little bit different. It's more like having a good company that matters more for me. Yeah.
True.
So if the movie is like B, and I'm going with the company that makes it an A, then it's like a thing for me as well. Yeah.
Cool.
So I might go watch a movie that is a B, yeah, as
Yeah.
well. But yeah, definitely. If a movie is like popular and like having a great story, then it I would definitely be rating it +1, yeah, over that
Yeah.
the B. Yeah.
Yeah. That's understandable. I kind
Mhm.
of ask because in the RunP app, we have the people's poll. And because the app is meant to be used during a movie, I can ask before the movie, what is your expectation for how good this movie will be?
Oh yeah.
And so you can
Okay.
do it on a
And
scale of, 1 to 10. And then when the movie's over, you can say like, what's your final rating for this movie? And so when you do that and you get to see like where was the expectation and where was the final rating. And we also ask you for your age and your gender. So you can see like the overall rating for everybody, but you can also will narrow it down to just your demographic. So, you know, uh, men in their late 20s, like, I'm guessing that's about your age range. And so you would be interested in seeing like what do men in their late 20s think of a movie versus what do, 6-year-old women think of this movie? Like maybe that doesn't factor in as much. So we kind of show you both of those. And kind of the thing that's shocking to me is how many people go see movies and their expectation going in is like below a 6. why why are you going to see this movie? Like you think this movie is going to be like a 5.5, and yet you went to the theater to see it. So that's kind of surprising, but it is really interesting to see how movies jump versus, their expectation, and then how different demographics um, view the movie. So, like, it's a common um, conception that uh, men like action movies, women rate action movies pretty consistently. They rate them higher than men do. Um, Say, like, a really good example is Deadpool. Deadpool had much better ratings from women across the board for all ages than men. Um, and then you brought up a really good one, Maverick. Is one of the actually probably top four movies of all time in the RunP's People poll. Like, it was just above a 9, which Maverick, Spider-Man: No Way Home, and Avengers Endgame, and I think Knives Out is right on that border of a 8.99. So that's a very elite company to get up into the nines in our poll. Um, and so, yeah, Maverick made it up there.
Except Knives Out, I've watched all of these in theater, and now that I remember you mention it, yeah, man, No Way Home was a really good movie. Yeah.
Yeah,
The reaction of the crowd. I remember when all of the previous Spider-Mans, when they came on the screen,
yeah.
that was
He's
really
like
exciting. Yeah.
right here. I cried.
The
Yeah.
crying part was when Iron Man died in Endgame. All the
Oh,
I remember all the ladies. I was hearing. All I could hear was. I mean, I was emotional too, but all I could hear was little girls and
yeah.
women in the back crying when Iron Man they just um, killed off Tony Stark.
When they first shot that scene, he didn't say, "I am Iron Man." He
Okay.
just snapped his fingers, and it was in post. They're like, "We need you to say, 'I am Iron Man.'" And yeah, that works so much better.
I actually remember, when I came out of, I went with my friends to watch Endgame, and I wasn't really happy with the Endgame ending. Of course, when there's a death of main character, it leaves
I know.
somewhat of a bad taste. But it's understandable, what they did.
The stakes have to be high. You have
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
and this is what I don't like, and I don't blame them. It's hard to avoid. Black Widow died too, but
Yeah.
Nobody remembers.
I mean, she just gets washed out with, like, if if Iron Man hadn't died, then it'd be like,
Mhm.
oh, Black Widow, I'm just crushed. But yeah, Iron Man dies. It's like, oh, that's right, Black Widow does die. I
But they
forgot.
all, but they also killed her in middle of the movie, and up until everybody was expecting a
Exactly.
big, so everyone
Yeah.
forgot about her till then.
It is like it just doesn't feel honorable for that
Yeah,
character and her importance, to just kind of like almost like throw her under the bus. Like,
yeah,
you wasted a but I think they had to set it up as well of, hey, look, not everybody's gonna make it. We've already killed off a really important character. So you kind of know going in, Thor, Captain America, or Iron Man, one of those three is gonna die in this last battle. You know. So yeah, wow.
yeah,
We could talk movies forever.
yeah. So okay, so do have some questions left over about RunP.
Yeah, yeah,
Is
yeah.
there any other company you think that's your competitor? Any other company that is doing the same thing as you guys? No.
It's funny. There was a long time ago. Um, so I got this email, and it was support. So somebody emailed me, Dan, or support@runp.com, and they're like, "Hey, the movie list isn't updating." I'm like, okay, and I go check the server. Okay, everything's cool. I'm like trying to debug. I'm working on it, and I'm like, okay, can you just share a screenshot, like I pretty much know that something is wrong on their device. Can you send me a screenshot of what you see? And they sent it to me, and I'm like, this isn't even my app. Somebody built, and I'm not kidding you, P Run. And so first I'm a little bit pissed off. I don't think there was an Android version. I think they only had an iOS version. A little bit pissed that Apple let that slide. But I can kind of understand. And at least they didn't copy and just go into my database and just like copy the, or just use the app and, transpose what I had, the work I'd done. And I think what they realized is like, it's really stinking hard to do the P times for movies, and it's not worth it. Like, it's been very gratifying to build RunP. I get, like, I literally, it's donation supported now. I literally have gotten people donate $100. Like, I love this app. It makes my movie going experience so much more enjoyable. Thank you. Here's $100. And like, it's hard to accept, like, but I have to because it's my income. Um, so it's very gratifying like that. But I make less than $2,000 a month off of RunP. Like I make more than I spend on it, but like it's a minimum wage job for me, for the most part. But it has been so rewarding to make so much of a difference to so many people. And I didn't cure cancer, but it's not nothing. And it's what I could do. So it's very happy. I'm very happy to have done that.
Did you ever thought of going big with RunP? Maybe reach out to theaters about white labeling RunP.
Yeah, so we are. The AMC Theater app has the RunP data in it, and it's branded as RunP.
It's branded as RunP.
Yeah, and if you go into the AMC Theater app, you can select a movie, and then it's kind of buried a little bit, but our P times that we select are in their app, and they pay me for that.
How many users do you have on RunP? A little bit a trend. What do you see?
So we've had millions of downloads. Active users, it depends on the time of year, but we're usually looking at around 150 to 250,000 monthly.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's 15 years old.
Yeah.
So, we've got a lot of, so like during the summer, when the blockbusters really come out, and during like December, when those blockbusters come out, we'll peak at about between 150 and 250,000 users during that month. Yeah.
One idea I had, and of course
Yeah.
you would have it by now too. Maybe you could market it a bit on TikTok, because these kind of things they make the like there's audience on TikTok
Yeah.
who would find it very cool,
Yeah.
and and they
So
could do reviews. I think RunP would blow up if somebody big enough with enough following makes a interesting, a funny TikTok about it. I think a lot of people, you could see an influx of the users from there.
that has happened.
Okay.
So here's actually the secret sauce. So we'll kind of get back to startup stuff, right? One of the hardest things that you're going to find is, and so I'd have to say this is hugely important. If you have a startup, one of the hardest things you're going to find is finding your customer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if your customer is something like RunP, it's like basically anybody who goes to the movie theater and they have a bladder. So I guess that's everybody who goes to a movie theater. I don't think there's people that go without a bladder. So, but I've got to reach those people. Like, how do you reach them? Like advertising? Advertising's crap, man. Like, I think the saying, my wife used to be in advertising, and she's a developer now, but she said 50% of all advertising is a waste of money.
Yeah.
You just don't know which 50%.
Yeah.
So yeah, reaching your audience will be your biggest problem in a startup. So if you can target your audience, so maybe you've got a very small audience. Like you don't, I think this is a misconception. Like you don't need to build an app that's TikTok or Facebook. And oh my God, the number of people that approach me because I developed RunP with, hey, can you come work for us? I'm a startup and I've got this idea that's going to be a Facebook killer. Like the number of times I've heard that is insane. I'm like, no, you're not. That's, like automatically, I know you're just full of crap. Like Facebook didn't think they were going to be Facebook, okay? So don't think that you're going to go killing them. But you don't have to be. Like with MapT, we need to reach high school students and their parents. Well, that's kind of like the leaves on the end of a tree, right? You got to, like, it's the last mile problem for hooking up, telecommunications, kind of like it's a lot of effort to get that last little bit. But there's already a lot of college counselors. There's roughly 10,000 um, professional college admissions counselors in the United States. 10,000. And they service millions. 10,000 is not much. And they can afford our services. Or the parents that are paying these people can easily, because they're paying hundreds of dollars an hour for this advice. So we can reach out to the counselors who are getting paid big bucks to use our app to help streamline their workflow. They can reach out to a lot of students who can afford to pay us, and we can make money so that then we can turn around and give it away to the lower income students. So thinking about how are you going to reach, like if you're trying to reach like the leaves on a tree, it's going to be a problem. You're going to have some money to advertise to them. But if you can reach out to maybe not the trunk, but think of moving like a couple of branches off from the trunk, and you can get to that node, and you know that like you could manually just Google these people and find them on LinkedIn and offer them something that helps them and they can help you. That's going to help you get off the ground a lot easier. RunP is the exception to the rule because people like to talk. I can tell because I've been talking forever. People like to tell fun stories. So imagine you're going out to the movies with some friends and you're hanging out and you're chit-chatting and you're like, oh my God, I've got to tell you about this app called RunP.
Yeah.
You're automatically the star. There's nothing controversial. It's not like, oh, I've got to tell you this news about, these people that got bombed. Okay, buzzkill, like we're at the movies. You know, you're sharing something that's fun. It's a utility. And that was not planned. Like I did not have that in mind. But people like CNN has talked about RunP, and I didn't know. Like we've been on MSNBC 3, 4, 5 times, and I'm just sitting here, I'm working, I'm on my own business, and then Twitter just blows up. RunP just is like scrolling through the Twitter feed because somebody with, millions of people watching just mentioned it. So the publicity that I've gotten for free is worth way more than RunP is worth. Let's put it that way. So that is going to be the thing that you've got to think about if you're building a startup is how am I going to get to the people that need to use this product? This solves this problem. You know,
And
figure
just
that
like
out.
it's interesting enough, it will catch on. I mean, there's only so much pushing you need to do.
Exactly. Yeah. So you brought up TikTok. It was around December last year. Somebody who they weren't that big on TikTok. Like they were trying to be. You could tell they were, and it was a father who was making some really interesting movie content. And I watched a couple of his videos after the fact, and I thought they were pretty ingenious. But somebody had talked on TikTok about RunP or about peeing in movies or something like that, and he came back and he just did like this, like you could kind of tell he threw this together in like 30 minutes. He's like, oh, here's this little clip from somebody else that was talking about the problem of peeing during this movie. Oh, here's this RunP app. Screenshot, blah, blah, blah. It says you want to pee. It's got a timer built into it. Da, 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 da. That went ballistic. And it's so funny because
Did it get?
what's that?
How many hits did it get?
Millions. Like I remember looking, like I'm sure he crossed over the million threshold on that one video. And I'm reading the comments and trying to respond to all of them that I can. And he actually responded and it was like, of all the videos I've done, of all the work and effort I've put into videos, this, this one is the one that blows up. And so it was funny to me. Like he
Yeah.
didn't think that he's like, oh, you know, 500 people might watch this video. Cool. I'll throw this one up. It'll take me 30 minutes, whatever. And then like he became kind of like that. I don't know if he's progressed because I don't use TikTok, but so you're right. If I had the time and the resources to throw into social media, I would definitely be going there. And as a matter of fact, I am putting it high on my list to reach out to a lot more podcasts, for instance. I mean, you guys found me, but I'm going to start contacting, specifically movie related podcasts to chit chat about movies and stuff and help spread the word.
I remember you first you said that if you want to talk about map, it's better to reach out to the CEO Henry. But I said to her, I said, no, this guy is really interesting. I mean, the RunP was. I mean, you can't just ignore what when you read about RunP. What this is
Yeah,
this interesting thing to exist. No, we definitely want to talk to Dan about RunP.
yeah. We are definitely the poster child for there's an app for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk about your writing because I read your blog on Learning to Learn and I loved it. And then I went
Oh,
to Run to read a few of the movie reviews. Actually, I read about the movie review about Monkey Man. I watched the trailer. I liked it,
hmm.
but a few I saw some social media posts that the Monkey Man didn't impress them much. So I thought maybe read your review and yours said the same. Yeah, I mean it's good but not great. So,
Yeah.
what I'm trying to make is about your writing. I mean, when I read, I kind of get the gist. If somebody's writing just for the sake of writing, they want
Mhm.
to get the SEO, they want to get the traffic, and there's somebody who loves to write, who likes to write. And I about you, I think you like to write.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a bit about your writing process and how during these years have you become fond of it or not, or it's just something you do or you like to. What's your thoughts on it?
Wow. How much longer do we have? Okay, so I'll try to be brief, but boy, that's a big can of worms. Um, I studied philosophy and history in college, so I wrote essays, and you know, I was pretty good. Like I had professors tell me, I had one professor tell me, whatever you do, write after college. Like whatever job you get, you've got to write. And I'm like, really? Like, I don't know. I'm like, I'm young. I don't know that I'm writing anything good. So I I was very lucky that I had some people that I admired, teachers that gave me a lot of really good feedback, um, that stoked my ego. Let's face it, like writing is creating anything. Let's not even say writing. Creating
Yeah.
anything is the psychology behind it. There's so much self-doubt because I write a lot. I'm writing a fiction trilogy right now, and the times that I read it or read stuff, and I'm like, "What a pile of garbage! You suck. This is no. You're going to embarrass yourself. Just stop." And that happens, and you've got to overcome that and be like, remember, you're pretty good at this. It's just it's just effort. It's just work. Keep working at it. Um, and so that's part of the process. Like literally last night, I was reading some of the stuff in book two that I've written years ago, and I just needed to find like a certain section of it that I was trying to remember exactly what had happened and stuff. And I'm reading, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna read the next chapter. yeah, okay, I'm gonna just read a little bit more. Damn, this is good. Like, I don't want to stop reading. I wrote this, but I wrote it years ago. I'm like, and next? I know I wrote this, but I'm still really engaged. And I'm like, okay, stop it. Like, I've got work to do. Go back to writing. Um, so yeah, you've got to balance the egotistical, man, I'm really good at this. Anything I do is going to be awesome. You've got to have that's going to be on one side, and on the other side, it's going to be like, you're crap. You should just give it up. And you've got to marry those two. And in the middle is just put your ass in a chair and work at it and work over and over and over at it until you know that it's good and it's publishable or whatever. Um, so that piece that you wrote is something that I'm kind of passionate about, learning to learn. Um, I would say I put a B effort into that. Um, I've got other things to do, and I can't. You can't turn in A+ work all the time, or else you'll turn in a tenth as much work as you could if you just aim for a B.
Yeah.
So I was just aiming for a B. Let's write it before you hit publish. Let's review it a few more times. Okay, good. Get it out there. Move on to the next thing. A lot of my movie reviews are like that. It's like the hardest thing to do is write the movie review for an average movie. It's like, I mean, it wasn't bad. I mean, it wasn't great. It's easy to write a movie review for a movie that sucked or that was awesome.
Yeah.
Those
Totally.
are those are easy. They write themselves. But it's those middle ground. It's like, what do you want me to say? Like, I got to bang out a few words here. C minus or C. I don't know. Flip a coin. I go to Rotten Tomatoes, like, okay, I'll give it a C. You know. Um,
You mentioned
but
your
yeah,
book,
yeah.
and you owe me a book, by the way, because you just crossed Atlas Shrugged off my list. So you
Well,
owe
now
me
I've
a
got to
book.
write this one. I owe you one.
Yeah. So what's
I
the
would
status
love
on
to share it with you. Yeah.
your series on your writing?
I'm sorry. What's that?
What's the status? Do you intend to publish it, or no?
Oh
It's
yeah,
just
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. It's gotten away from me for the past 5-ish years. Like I
Oh,
started writing this in 2010, like really beginning and early, and I'm kind of going back through and just taking it all apart and looking at the scaffolding, making sure that the the character arcs are there, that it starts where it needs to start. I know how it ends, um, and I know most of the middle stuff. The ending, I think, is important, and this is my process. Like some people just like they make up some characters in a situation and they just let it go. And I think we've seen movies like that, and they usually go. I don't know. That's not for me. Um, I have an arc plan. I know how things connect, and so in my trilogy, things that happen late are backed up by what happens early. And I'm not going to publish any of them until all three are complete. So that, if I think of something like, oh, wait, I need to go back to book one and set the foundation for something that happened. Because I want people to read book three and go like, wait a second, that was like a throwaway line in book one leads to this huge thing that happens here, you know, and consequences and whatnot. So, um, and oddly enough, I'm I'm personally agnostic at best. I'd say agnostic at worst, atheist at best. And my book is spiritual fiction. It is very spiritual. Um, so it's interesting coming from me, building a religion in my fiction that is compelling to me, but I don't believe in spiritual stuff. So,
Okay. So it's maybe a month or even a years if you would want to complete it.
um, I think optimistically in 2 years it'll be published. But I'm
So
working at it every like at least 4 nights a week. I'm finding time to work, and I'm hoping my role at MapT by the end of this year will transition entirely to writing and supporting developers to do the work, and I'll work with them on that. But that my job will be predominantly writing for the blog for MapT and working on my book, and just because writing is what really gets me going.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing I don't want to stop doing. It's hard to keep coding, but it's hard to stop writing. So
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Man, it was really interesting to talk to you, Dan. I mean, there's no further questions from my side. Sama, if you want to ask anything.
Uh, Nothing from my side as well. Yeah. Anything from your side, Dan?
Yeah. We love to answer any of your questions.
yeah, I'm really excited to see what you guys are doing and building here, and definitely keeping in touch.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think it's important for people to like support communities and whatnot. And that's what I want to build with MapT, is a community to help students
Mm-hmm.
build themselves and support themselves and grow into the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I've benefited so much from people reaching out to RunP to just, hey, I'm an expert at this thing. Here's my expert knowledge. Take it. And I'm happy if anybody that's listening to this blog, if you want to. I know pitching ideas is scary, and so one last bit of advice is your startup idea is worthless. Don't get married to your startup idea. It has a value of a big fat goose egg. The implementation of
Mm-hmm.
your idea, that's where the work is, and that's where the brilliance comes in. So don't get, you know, don't get hung up and, like I said, fall in love with an idea. Fall in love with how to implement an idea, and that's where you'll find your success.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I also believe in like the process of building something is like much greater than having just the idea and just, like doing nothing.
Yeah,
Idea is nothing if you just don't implement it. Yeah.
yeah.
And I would say sometime idea is like many of the people have same kind of an idea, but implementing and going through the process
Hmm.
is like a gem in itself. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to share one more funny story with you guys. I think you'll really love this. Um, Probably about 5, 6 years ago, I get this email from somebody at Google, and it's like, username at google.com. Okay. So an engineer at Google. And he said, I had the idea for RunP when I was in college back in the late 90s. Thank you for building this app and making it a success like it has become, because I
Mhm.
pitched this idea to my friends to
Mhm.
help me watch movies and grow this, and they didn't believe in me.
Mhm.
And so now I can go to all of my friends and say, look at this. I was right. You were
Yeah.
wrong. This was a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I had
Uh,
support. Yeah.
and
Thanks, guys.
before we said our goodbyes, Dan,
Uh-huh.
I have to. It's on my mind since the whole podcast about your shirt. It's missing a comma after eat, and it's messing up with my mind. Let's eat kids, because I think there should be a comma after eat. I think it's a play. I think it's a play on the word, so people do find it funny or amusing.
Mhm.
But yeah, what do you think?
Uh, that would definitely reach a different crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for taking out your time, because we know you're juggling up multiple things and you'll be very busy. So we are very grateful for because you
Well,
take out time for schedule.
thank you. I've really enjoyed this conversation. You guys are awesome, and let's stay in touch.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye bye.